Welcome to the Putback on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley here with my buddy Chris Williamson. Chris, what do we have for the baseline this week?
Well, Ian, Spencer Dinwiddie, the Nets guard, has got some cryptic tweets going on. What are you hearing about him?
Well, I know that several Western Conference contenders have internally kind of expressed interest or kind of kicked the tires on the possibility of trading for Spencer Dinwiddie. Now, I don't know how the Nets feel about it, but he could be a free agent next summer with the Nets. You know, they have big contracts on the books already, and they certainly want to re-sign Joe Harris this offseason. So they might be challenged to sign Dinwiddie at his market value when he hits free agency. You put those things together, and it seems like they will have discussions with some teams about a Dinwiddie trade once we get to this NBA offseason.
And speaking about trades, another guard who the Nets may have some interest in is Jrue Holiday. What more can you share about that development?
Yeah, one note there is I know that some people with the Pelicans like at least one of the top point guards in this draft, and they sit there at 13. They would have to trade up to get this player. If you trade Jrue Holiday, maybe you want to go ahead and draft a point guard. So that's something to keep an eye on.
And what's the latest on Victor Oladipo coming to New York with those trade talks?
I know friend of the show, Zach Lowe at ESPN, reported that the Knicks had cooled on Oladipo, and I have a prediction to make. It's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen with this Knicks roster as currently constituted. I don't think a trade for Victor Oladipo will be happening this offseason. Even if the Knicks said to Indiana, hey, you know, here's 3 first-round picks. We want to take Oladipo, whatever it may be. I still don't see a deal getting done. Possibility for the Knicks, as we've reported, is the idea that they look into taking on a contract that a team wants to get off of, using their cap space that way. One other note, Chris, on the NBA draft. If you're a Knicks fan and you're looking at the point guard position and the Knicks sitting at 8, take a look at Detroit. I think some people with the Pistons want to take a lead guard, a ball handler, a playmaker. Other people with Detroit, as other outlets have reported, have eyes on Patrick Williams at Florida State. And then you look at Cleveland, they're unlikely to take a lead guard because of their current roster. So it seems as if one of these top guards in the draft, Haliburton, Kyra Lewis, would be there for the Knicks at 8, the way things stand right now.
Paul Biancardi is the National High School Basketball Recruiting Director for ESPN. He also was Tom Thibodeau's senior captain at Salem State, and he won the Horizon League Coach of the Year when he coached at Wright State.
Well, I had a chance to see LaMelo Ball since he was a freshman at Chino Hills High School. So I see all these guys when they're like freshmen in high school, sophomores, and then obviously Ball went overseas a couple of times. And I think he's the most talented player in the draft. He's the best playmaker in the draft. He's the best decision maker, excellent passer with his elite positional size. I think he really enjoys being in the gym. Now, I don't think he enjoys playing defense very much, but I think he loves being in the gym, and I think he loves to play. And if he could ever get to New York, that would be a grand slam. Now, obviously, he'd have to conform on the defensive end, but that's going to happen, or has to happen, wherever he goes. But I'll tell you what, offensively, it's hard to find better than LaMelo Ball in this draft.
Do you think it would almost be good for LaMelo to end up with a coach who is such a great teacher, especially on the defensive end, as Tibbs is, because he will get him better on that end of the floor?
As long as he wants to. I mean, defense is all want to. We can talk all day about athleticism and measurables, but if you want to become a great defender, you can be. LaMelo Ball can be an excellent defender. So if he's willing and he embraces teaching and defense, I mean, his stock would go through the roof with Tibbs.
Joe Abunassar is the founder of Impact Basketball. He's also a trainer for Scores of Pro, college, and elite prep players, and he's trained over 130 NBA draft picks.
You know, he's an interesting top prospect because he's went from zero to hero real quick. You know, I mean, he was very low recruited out of college. He wasn't a McDonald's kid. He didn't experience all that, you know, shoe circuit stardom that a lot of these guys are experiencing now. So I will say he's one of the most compliant and humble top guys I've ever worked with. He glides, you know, Tyrese is an interesting prospect because he's very different. You know, he's long-limbed. So when you have a long-limbed guy like that moves the way he moves, the worst thing I could do for him is put too much weight on him. Even though these teams are saying, gotta get stronger, he has to improve his body, and he has. put on 18 pounds, since the season, which he still needs to put on a little strength. And, I trained Tayshaun Prince his whole career, and, Tayshaun didn't really gain any weight, but he just got so much stronger. So Tyrese has that kind of body.
I guess with Tyrese specifically, because you've had him for so long, what worked there to help him put that weight on?
It's a combination of his diet design, supplementing with the Herbalife products, and then also obviously really good strength training. We've been able to supplement him. We have a great partnership with Herbalife Nutrition, and their 24 line has been able to, it makes it easier. People say, I don't take supplements, but it's just so much easier to take a shake when you know exactly what's in it.
How have you seen the added weight, 18 pounds? How has that impacted the way he's able to operate on the court?
He moves the same, and he's moving more explosively. So I think the added weight did, it's like a bigger engine in your car, right? You're putting muscles in your legs and in your glutes and your core where you're being able to explode a little bit better. He's a pick and roll guy. He's a guy that's got to get into gaps. That's really important for Tyrese. When he used to try to get into gaps, he would just get one bump and he'd be go flying the other way, just the law of physics, right? He doesn't have a lot of weight. So he's able to absorb the contact better. And I think defensively, he's able to guard the ball. He's terrific off the ball. He has great anticipation, long arms. But I think everything from him is just a little sharper and a little quicker now. And most certainly, he's able to absorb contact a lot better.
I like the fact that he was not a top 150 player in high school. So for him to make the climb to where he is now says a lot about his character. He is a real point guard at about 6'5". He has a very good feel for the game. I think he has very good instincts. He wants to make his teammates better, and he rebounds well for a guard, what you would want out of your big guard. I don't think he's an elite athlete. I think he's a good enough athlete. If he fell to number 8 for the Knicks, if I was in that basketball operations office, I would tell them, go get your champagne and let's celebrate, because that's a good pick.
So, Paul, you played for Tom Thibodeau at Salem State. Just from that perspective, from somebody who's played for Thibodeau, from somebody who knows the game so well and knows New York so well, how do you think Tom fits here in New York with the Knicks?
Well, I think it's a tremendous fit, and I'll tell you why. I think Tom is a world-class coach, and we know New York is one of the biggest stages in the NBA. And Tom grew up in Connecticut and was a former assistant coach with the Knicks. So he understands, Madison Square Garden, the history of New York Knicks basketball. And where he is today as a coach and where the Knicks are today, I love the fit for New York, and I love the fit for Tibbs.
Now, if you could hit the Wayback Machine for a second, Paul. You were named as a senior team captain, and you won a significant award with the program. So clearly, you left an impact on him. What do you remember about him as a coach back then?
I loved it because I love the game. And if you love the game, then you love the grind. Tom brought passion to every practice and every game and every meeting. And he helped you as a player develop, but he also gave the team what they needed to win. Whether it was meetings, scouting reports, practices, off-season conditioning, this guy was just well-versed. He took it very seriously. He was very focused. And he gave us his best every day. And I get goose pimples just saying that right now because I remember how much I wanted it. And then there's somebody on the other end who wants it more. And that's what you want as a player who loves the game.
And Paul, when you look at this draft class, who do you think would fit well with their mental makeup to go alongside with Tibbs' coaching style?
Well, I think Tibbs likes a guy who's a high IQ guy. Obviously, he wants a competitor, somebody who's going to embrace development and not avoid being in the gym. So those things have to check off along with the talent that the Knicks need to, rise their franchise. So I would say Isaac Okoro to me is a guy who really fits well. He's a defensive-minded player. He's elite on the defensive end. He's an NBA switch defender right now with an NBA body. And that brings a lot of value because we all know, you need stops in the league to get out in transition to supposedly, run and then get into your half-court set. So Okoro really brings, I think, a Tom Thibodeau-like mindset to the game. He's an okay shooter. We know that he has to improve his three-point shot, but if he can get his three-point shooting, to the mid-30s and be that elite on-ball defender, and also a guy who can chase people off screens, muscle in the post, keep the ball out of the lane. I like Okoro a lot.
Jeremy Lin. I guess when did you work with him and when what stood out at that time?
He's from California, so his mother brought him out before his senior year at Harvard, and we brought him in, got to know him. Had the great senior year at Harvard. I remember a phone call with Jeremy in maybe March of his senior year, and I said, "Hey, are you going to come out for the draft?" And I 100% will quote him saying, "I'm thinking about it, but I'm just not sure I'm an NBA player." Thinking that way, you don't usually hear that, right? You usually hear the opposite of, "I'm going number one." He came out, and that was the year I had a star-studded guard. I had Avery Bradley, I had Lance Stevenson, I had the kid Sharon Collins from Illinois. Jeremy worked against those guys and got better and got better and got better. Famous Jeremy Lin Day is the first day of Summer League when he played against John Wall. And, to John's defense, being the number one pick and kind of having the media responsibilities, it wasn't really finely tuned. And Jeremy had the game of his life that got the deal with Dallas, where he was with the Knicks, the Linsanity and the whole thing. We couldn't believe it, when the Sports Illustrated cover and the whole thing. And I'm like, is that Jeremy Lin? I can't believe that this dude, from telling me he wasn't a draft guy, that was kind of his wake-up call when during the draft process, he was able to play against those guys. And I think he really realized, you know what? These guys aren't any better than me. Yeah, I'm from Harvard or whatever, but I can play with these guys. So I think that helped him out a lot.
For Chris Williamson, I'm Ian Begley, and we'll see you next week on the Putback. But before we go, rest in peace to Willie Negron, such a vital member of the New York City basketball community. Negron was constantly helping unheralded New York City players, shining a light on their game and getting their name out there. And he was a friend to so many in the basketball community, whether it was Coach K or, an unheralded backup guard in the PSAL or CHSAA. Willie was a friend to all, and we're going to miss him.